Of course, we couldn't have a conversation without a little bit of COVID talk. I want to know what your guys' take on how the league has handled COVID so far. And is it even worth considering having a bubble for the playoffs? Jarrett, if you want to go first.
Yeah, I think the league has done a pretty good job because here we are, we're halfway through the season. And when this thing ramped up in July, we didn't know. We didn't know, for example, whether or not the virus would be spread with guys practicing against each other or playing against each other in games. Just did not know. And the league has done a really good job, I think, in terms of being flexible and revising its protocols along the way.
Mike, how do you like the idea of a bubble for the playoffs?
Well, I know people throw it out there and they criticize the NFL. They say pay for a bubble and everything, but the logistics of getting all those thousands of players and coaches and support staff into one location, it's just not really feasible. The playoffs, it's pared down, but you're still talking about a lot. It's a big production to get two teams in the same city for the Super Bowl, let alone for a whole playoffs thing.
And speaking of the playoffs, the NFL just approved a 16-team playoff if games are canceled. So, JB, I want to know, what have you heard as far as what went into deciding this? Because they could have gone with the 18-week season. And could you break down how that's going to look?
Yeah, this is one of those things that has been talked about really since the summer or the spring when they began looking at how are we going to manage a season. And so there are any number of contingency plans that they've had, and this is one that really kind of has been done before, if you will. You go back to 1982 when there was a strike that wiped out 9 weeks of the season. I know you guys probably weren't around covering the league back then, like some of us.
But you for the answer.
You're calling yourself out.
But yeah, back in 1982, there was a 9 games were wiped out because of the player strike. They came back, and that's what they did. They just kind of had this mega playoff field that when you talk about the popularity of the NFL, it is at its peak in January. And obviously with the Super Bowl, but even in those weeks leading up to the Super Bowl with the wild card and the divisional and the conference championships. And so I think that's the thing that the NFL is really looking to protect and to capitalize on.
Yeah, it's another contingency plan because they still, it has to work out that they're not able to push back any of these games. I think that they could even see, another Thursday night game or something like that, just to try to make sure they get all these games in place. But then if they don't in 17 weeks, then they have the 18th week because they canceled the Pro Bowl. So that gives you an extra week to move everything back. So I really feel like this would be the last resort. I think it would be cool going forward if they did expand the playoff field to that. We already know that it's expanded from 12 to 14. Would it go to 16? But again, this is if they can't fit it into 2 weeks, those last, the 17th and the 18th week. But the way that they've gotten it done so far, I kind of feel like they're going to find a way and be, creative. And hopefully it doesn't come down to that.
When it comes to playoff teams, I want to know from both of you guys, are the Steelers really good? Their record obviously is incredible this season, but they barely beat out an injury-stricken Cowboys team. What would you attribute their success to this year?
I think it has to go down to their leadership and the experience that they have at the top, the trust that Mike Tomlin has in his veterans and his quarterback. I think they're a good team. I don't think that they're great, but one thing that they have that a lot of teams don't is the resiliency, the ability to weather adversity, weather storms. Look, last year, this team lost Big Ben early in the season, and they had multiple quarterbacks, and they still finished off 8-8. Now they've got their quarterback, their leader, their field general back, and they've got this perfect record. They don't flinch, and that's because Mike Tomlin is such a tone setter. They take on his characteristics, his persona.
Their resilience is pretty amazing. It's in their DNA. Another thing you look at, and you just touched on it with Ben Roethlisberger. I was there in training camp, and Roethlisberger was talking to the press about the team and the prospects and everything. And and they started talking about all the weapons that he has and what they've added and the defense and special teams. And Roethlisberger said, so really what you're saying is that all they need is a quarterback and then they'll be okay. And I mean, it was really the truth, because we saw what happened last year. And I thought, personally speaking, that there was a little bit of a risk for the Steelers not to go out and to sign, say, a Jameis Winston or Cam Newton or somebody like that to have an experienced backup with Roethlisberger coming off of an elbow injury. But they didn't have to do it, and so far they've stayed the course.
So looking ahead to 2021, I want to know what your guys' Super Bowl predictions are as far as what it will look like, how many fans will be allowed. What are you guys hearing looking ahead, Mike?
Well, they're planning on having fans. The number has not been determined yet. They're kind of trying to monitor everything from what I've been told. It looks like it's going to be somewhere between 15 and 20,000, maybe 25,000. Florida's governor has already said he wants the stadium packed, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So I think probably in that 20,000 range would be what they're looking at. It's going to look different, though, as far as the teams. They're not going to be getting there on that Monday, the big Super Bowl, media night, hoopla, and everything like that. They probably won't get there until later in the week. And then, once the lights go on, once there's kickoff, you're not going to think about what's around. We'll see about the halftime show and everything like that. But as far as what it's going to look like, it's going to be Patrick Mahomes back at it again, slinging the football around and in a shootout with Russell Wilson, and Patrick Mahomes is going to win it all again.